everyone, welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be age gap romance recommendations, and I feel like this video has been a long time coming because I've always wanted to do like a list of these for you, but I am very picky when it comes to age gap stuff, so I feel like I've read a lot, but not a lot that I wanted to recommend. So we're finally here. We have finally accumulated a list that I personally love and want to recommend to you guys. So as far as age gap goes, it's self-explanatory. Obviously, one of the love interests is going to be substantially older than the other. That can be anything from like a few years up to like a lot longer than that. So this is obviously gonna touch into like taboo territory depending on how big the age gap is and how it affects their lives outside of the relationship. So for me, I personally require my age gap romances to have whoever the youngest character is be at least 18. I don't think that's too much to ask, but I feel like that's a fine line that gets crossed frequently in the age gap world. So I particularly need at least both of them to be consenting adults. And I kind of I don't require it, but I prefer it to not affect their jobs if possible. As far as like explanations for that goes, I tend to steer away from like student-teacher relationships just because it gives me the ick. Anything that would get one person fired if they found out that they were dating a client or a student or a patient or, you know. So those are things that I personally just have a hard time suspending my belief for in books. A lot of other people just eat that shit up. I personally am not one of them. So those are my requirements. They have to be consenting adults, and it likely has to not affect their careers if possible. There are some exceptions to those rules, but let's just get to the list because we're going to kick things off with what I assume a lot of people start their love of age gap romances with, and that is Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. I think this book is like the gateway drug for age gap romances for a lot of people. It was for me. It was my first age gap romance, and I ate it up. So this is our heroine ends up in a relationship with her ex-boyfriend's dad, and that in theory should give you the ick feeling as well, but it is paced so well. It is done so well. It is such a slow burn, and you see the perspectives from both sides. You see both of them like fighting their feelings for each other, but like eventually giving into it, and it is done flawlessly. This book is thick, it is long, and I think that's also another requirement. It doesn't have to be a requirement, but it's something I prefer age gap romances to be, and that is a slow burn. I like to see the relationship slowly build, and I like to see the should we, shouldn't we thought process. I like to see both parties questioning the things that they should be questioning, and then ultimately giving into it. I love it. I eat it up. So this book in particular follows Jordan, who is 19, and her boyfriend is a dick, ultimately. So the book basically starts off with her boyfriend just kind of like ruining the relationship and then breaking up, but through a weird series of events, she actually ends up moving in with him and his dad. And it is a very slow burn, tension-y filled romance with Daddy Pike, who is his father, and it is so good. So like I said, this is the book that I feel like is the gateway age gap romance for a lot of people just because it's done so well. A lot of people love it. It's highly recommended for a reason. Okay, moving into another book that is very popular recently because of, I think, BookTube and BookTok, and that is Don't Kiss the Bride by Carrie Cole. Carrie Cole does write a lot of taboo romances, and she frequently writes a lot of age gap romances, so see also the Tied and Torn duet, that is also an age gap romance, but in particular, Don't Kiss the Bride was spectacular. So this is a marriage of convenience. It's also kind of a forced proximity trope. They end up moving in together. And this is one of these books that I feel like everything is believable in it. The reasons for the marriage are highly believable. Them moving in together, highly believable, because I feel like when you kind of look in from the outside as far as these relationships go, it's very hard to like get it. Carrie Cole tosses you into the story and you're rooting for both characters to succeed on day one. and then the relationship starts to evolve from there. So this book follows Skylar when she is 18 years old, and she is coming from a very rough situation. And I really like the backstory on both Skylar and Jude, our two characters in this book. Skylar deals with a lot of anxiety. Skylar also deals with an eating disorder, and Skylar also deals with a neglectful parent figure. So when Jude runs into her, he is a construction worker who happens to be working across the street from her school. They just kind of periodically keep running into each other, and they form a friendship over this until he realizes her living conditions and what she is dealing with that no person should have to go through. So he takes it upon himself to have her move in with him because she is in such a disgusting, hoarding, neglectful situation at home that it's the only option in his mind. So he has her move in with him, quickly realizes that she has some serious issues that she needs to work through both physically and emotionally, and proposes the idea of marriage so that she could be put on his health insurance so that she can get the help that she needs. And that is strictly all the relationship is for a very long period of time. And they both agree to this, fully consenting, aware of the whole situation, and it feels very organic how this comes across. And then of course the tension starts to build, and it is done so well. This is another thick book that I feel like is such a slow burn and slow like character development book that you fully appreciate both characters on their own, let alone as a couple. I loved it so much. Carrie and Cole is really good at the age gap. Just saying, that's an author to look for. Okay, speaking of authors who like age gap romances, Mariana Zapata, the queen of slow burn herself, is also a huge fan of some age gap in her romances. Almost all of her heroes in her books are substantially older than our heroines. I'm holding up Colti in particular because I feel like this one has the best dynamic of that, but pretty much all of her books are very slow burn, very age gappy. So if you like one, you're gonna like basically all of her books. Colti in particular is a coach and soccer player relationship, which gave me the icky feelings at the beginning, but it is such a good relationship just to watch from day one, when they hate each other to them developing a friendship, just strictly platonic friendship, to developing a little bit further than that. So this follows Sal, who is essentially a pro soccer player, up and coming pro soccer player, and she has had a crush on Colti, who is a German pro soccer player for many years. She's had a crush on him since she was a child. Like, she had his posters on her walls, and he comes to actually help coach her soccer team, and he is the grumpiest of grumps. So if you like Grump and Sunshine, if you like sports romances, if you like age gap, if you like slow burn, this is all of the above. So this is Sal and Colti's relationship, and like I said, very slow burn, very thick, very chunky, and I'm just now realizing this is what I look for in age gap, is the slow burn, because I want to have deep feelings for both of the characters individually before the romance starts. So I feel like you kind of need some serious character development time before you get to that, hence the thick, chunky, slow burn books. Okay, if we're going for slightly smaller books that you don't need like 600 pages of slow burn, Twisted Games by Anna Huang. This is book 2 in her Twisted series, but they kind of read as standalones. This is a princess and her bodyguard, so picture like Princess Diaries, but make it sexy. And it's great. So this follows Bridget, who is kind of being forced onto the throne throughout the course of this book of a very small, unknown, fictional European country. And it is her having to step into that responsibility and really struggling with that. And it is her relationship with her bodyguard, Reese, who is just the grumpiest of grumps. And this one is much shorter than those previous books that I've talked about. So not only are we navigating kind of a workplace relationship, but there is also a substantial couple year age gap between them, where Reese has already kind of gone off and experienced life. He's been in the military, he has some trauma that he has to work through, and Bridget is kind of this young, bubbly character who is having to step into a lot of responsibility that she doesn't feel like she's ready for. So that combination just works perfectly, and I just adore Bridget and Reese so much. And also this book has some of the sexiest scenes you'll ever read. Like, Reese is dominant, and it's perfection, just saying. Okay, and lastly, I'm gonna recommend a series that I'm in the middle of reading, which is rare for me. I don't like to recommend stuff that I haven't completed, so I don't have full thoughts on it yet. But this duet is making its rounds on BookTube, on BookTok, in Bookstagram, in the book community in general. This is the Wildflower Duet by Michaela Smeltzer. Michaelia? And this is a substantial age gap. This is following a girl who has a very grumpy man move in next door to her, and she ends up nannying for him. And he is 31 and she is 18. So this is a duet of books. Book 2 is already out. It just came out this month. First of all, these covers are stunning. So I'm currently reading this, so take this all with a grain of salt, but as of right now, I am devouring this book. I also have heard that the ending is devastating, so I'm glad that I waited to pick this up until book 2 was out, but this is just sneaking in at the end of this video as a potential recommendation for you guys to look out for. Haven't finished it yet, can't give you a 100% recommendation, but as of right now, I'm sticking it in this video because it fits the criteria and I'm loving it. So there you go. I've read a lot of age gap romances over the years, but those are the ones that I'm going to recommend to people as far as getting into the subgenre, or if you're like me and you kind of just have like things that you want in an age gap romance or things that you try to avoid. These are the books that have worked really well for me, that I feel like just develop the relationship really, really well in a very healthy way. So those are my recommendations to you. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any really good ones, let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys in my next video.